Hello.
Hey, Pablo.
Hey, what's up? What's up, Keegan? How are you doing?
I'm doing well, thanks. It's a beautiful day out, so I'll get outside later and yeah, things are good. Enjoy the intro animation there. It's nice.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, how
Yeah, we
about
have
you?
our video editor doing nice work there. So really happy with that one. And the music too. That's nice.
Yes.
Thanks for joining us today.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So welcome everyone as you start to join on the live stream. I am Pablo Gonzalez Day, Webflow developer here at Edgar Allen, and this is EA Live, where we host awesome people from our Webflow community. Webflow developers, designers, copywriters, brand and agency owners, and we just have nice conversations, and we'd love it when you also interact with us live. So there's the chat, and if you want to send any messages throughout, we'll try to respond them live, and that makes the stream ever more interesting. And today we have Keegan Leary. How do I pronounce your last name? Leary.
Leary, yeah.
Leary, Keegan Leary, also known as Web Bae in the Twitter verse and in the Webflow world, right? Where
That's
did
it.
you? Can you tell me where you got that name from, and how you had to land on that?
Yeah, I was just playing around in Illustrator with different names and logo ideas and things for how I wanted to present myself. And I was a competition between Flogo and Web Bae. And I liked Babe just because it was a bit more fun. I don't know, they're both pretty fun. But just wanted something that wasn't too serious. And then I like Bay as well, since I'm in San Francisco. It's like reminiscent of the Bay Area, as we call it, and that sort of thing. So yeah, it's a fun one.
Nice,
My
yeah,
logo is just a bunch of squares. It looks too professional though. I need to like get a logo that's more fun and yeah, I don't know. So that's something on my mind.
yeah. You're always using that spice little emoji, and the name is spicy, but then the logo is like professional,
Yeah,
Keegan
yeah.
Leary.
My whole goal is to be less professional and like less corporate. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I love that, man. And coming from your, background of being in the Navy, that's a nice transition to, right? I guess.
Yeah, yeah, a lot of like it's like everything was so serious, not everything, like we had a lot of
Yeah,
fun too, but coming from that background, yeah, it's quite a change. So that's the whole purpose for it.
yeah, of course. Hey, and just for anyone that doesn't like know who you are or what you do, I'd love if you could give us just a short, bio, who you are, where you're from, and what are you doing, lately. What have you been doing?
Yeah, thanks for asking. I grew up in the Bay Area in Palo Alto, like probably a 5-minute walk from Stanford University. People tend to know where that is. Um, so I was just always into Silicon Valley and computers growing up. I went to school at UCLA and joined a program when I was there to be a Navy nuclear propulsion officer. So then I spent 2 years training with the Navy on how to supervise and operate reactors. Did 3 years on the USS Louisville, which is a submarine out of Pearl Harbor. Spent 2 years up in Canada consulting with the Royal Navy up there. And then I was in recruiting. So basically, all that's to say, I did 10 years in the Navy. And when I was leaving the Navy, I decided to, what was it? I just kind of was like exploring different things to do. And for me, what was fun was learning how to code. I started coding up some games and stuff. I was in Unity and exploring with that, but then realized I needed to make some money and found that like Webflow
Mhm.
was probably the easiest way to actually push production code to the web. So yeah, that's how I ended up with Webflow. And my clients were really like asking for a lot of custom solutions. And so that led me very quickly to Finsweet, which then led me very quickly to JavaScript. And so I just got
Mhm.
really into coding on top of Webflow. Yeah, and that's kind of that's a lot of kind of background there. I feel like I'm rambling, and I see we're highlighting people in the chat. So Heather's
Yeah.
here. That's my girlfriend. I'm so glad she showed up. And
Hey,
Snorkel TV
Heather.
is Carl, who has some of the best GSAP courses. So gotta plug Carl. Appreciate Carl showing up too.
Awesome, man. Yeah, thanks everyone for joining and commenting there in the chat. Then you can Header, you can maybe ask a question for Web for Keegan. Yeah, that would you probably have some good questions to ask him and get him on the spot. So yeah, no, that's a nice background. Actually, weirdly, my dad, he was a Navy a submarine captain here in the Argentinian Navy.
Oh, no way.
So yeah, we have that in common, I guess. Yeah, I slept under the on the seabed once when I was like 15 or something. He took me on a submarine ride.
Oh, you did. So you've experienced the novelty, I guess.
Yeah, really, really fun, man. So I know all about that sort of Navy life, moved around a bunch growing up. A bunch of places, cities here in Argentina. I'm based in Buenos Aires in Argentina, but also lived in Peru and Mexico and Italy. So I know all about that, traveling around when you're in the Navy.
Oh, right on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where in Italy were you?
Yeah, in Rome. Yeah.
In Rome. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, my friend was stationed. We have a small Navy base in Naples. My
Mm.
friend was stationed there, so I got to visit, which was cool. Yeah.
Yeah. It's beautiful. So
How old were
awesome.
you when you got your submarine ride?
Probably around 14, 15, I'd say. Don't really remember exactly, but somewhere around there. Yeah.
Okay.
It was fun. Yeah, it was like a two-day thing. One day we went out into the ocean, and then we went down into the seabed and landed there, and we slept through the night there, and then went back. It was like a training thing probably,
Uh-huh.
but my dad was the captain, so he was able to bring people, I guess.
Yeah.
So I went with him.
That's amazing. We called them tiger cruises or VIP cruises when we were
Yeah,
allowed to bring family on board. It maybe happened one day out of every 2 years or something. But
yeah,
yeah, if your dad's the captain, he kinda
yeah.
calls the shots, right? That's
That's
interesting
right.
that they landed on the ocean floor too. We don't
Yeah,
do that, because it's run on the nuclear reactor. We use seawater to cool it, so we have these big, intake valves, and if we
oh,
were
because
to
that's not we're not as technical as you guys. We don't have not nuclear. I mean, we don't use much submarines anymore now. The Navy is like not very. That doesn't have a lot of investment. But when I was, maybe like 15 years ago, the submarines were not nuclear. So I
Mhm.
guess that's why.
Yeah, I don't think Argentina uses nuclear subs, but what's cool about the battery is you can just go park on the ocean floor. Like you guys
Yeah,
you have a diesel engine that you charge your battery, and then
yeah,
you can park on the ocean floor. Since the nuclear reactor, we cool it with seawater. If we park on the floor, we'll suck up all the sand in our
yeah. You're
intake,
not
our
cooling
seawater intake,
anything.
and then yeah, we'll foul up all of our cooling system. So we actually can't do that. It's
Yeah.
pretty interesting. The diesel electric subs actually are quite capable. Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know much. That's all I know. So that's as far as I can take you on this submarine conversation, man.
yeah,
You can talk with my dad if you want more
sure.
details on that diesel submarine.
You know, yeah, we don't have to make this whole talk about submarines, but the Argentinian Navy, I think it was probably 5 years ago now, they had a downed submarine.
Yeah,
That was the most recent occurrence I can think of that, which is
yeah,
unfortunate, but that
yeah.
doesn't happen
40,
often, so yeah.
no, 40 something officers. Yeah, that was one of those submarines that like super old submarines and in a sort of training situation. Yeah, it was quite of a national tragedy of sorts.
Yeah.
So, but not to end this, like to start this on a downer. Let's shift gears.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah, sure.
and yeah, I just curious. Okay, love your background, and it's like super interesting that you would transition to that. And I know you mentioned you started with Unity, and you kind of couldn't figure that out, or you were like, I want something that I can make money with faster, or something like that. Like, why did you go into code? Did it have anything to do with like your electrical engineering background, or like why was that the thing when you kind of were like, I don't know, left the Navy? Why did you go into coding?
Yeah, I think multiple things pushed me in that direction. The things that I like about code are that you can do it anywhere. The startup costs are very minimal. As long as you have a laptop and a and you're on YouTube, you can learn so much. And then it's just a great way I feel like to make a living. You can solve like really interesting technical problems, whether you're interested in front end like creative coding and art and design, or if you're interested in like more technical which front end's still technical, but if you're interested in back end and like data, data analysis, that sort of thing, or you're interested in ML, like there's just so many problems that you can address with code. And then I just like to build things, and I like that I can, rather than having to have a big space with the workshop, I like to get my hands dirty too, but
Yeah.
with code, you can just sit on a couch with your laptop and get it done. So that's what I think that's why I like coding. What drew it to me is just, I've always been kind of into nerdy stuff, video games, and living in Silicon Valley, tech was definitely the sexy thing. I see like it's getting all spun up. We got Figma config coming
Yeah.
at the end of the month, and the WWDC for Apple is getting all spun up right now. So it's a fun place to live if you're into tech, and it just more and more pushes you that way. Growing up in Palo Alto, you hear of all these startups and just like starting out in houses and stuff. So it becomes this kind of this dream thing.
Yeah, I can imagine that, sort of living right in the middle of the in the eye of the hurricane, right? That's all you hear, right?
Yeah.
New startups and new technologies and all that.
Yeah. I went to school with kids whose dads and moms were into tech and just doing some pretty wild stuff. My parents were just boring dentists, but not just kidding. I really enjoyed visiting my dad's office and my mom's office. That was a place to get my hands dirty, and they let me like build bike trays and that sort of thing. So
And you have
always,
good teeth, so it's
they're all
something.
right. All right. I'm due for a checkup here. How about you? Are you doing code, or are you doing mostly web? Yeah.
So I'm doing, so I'm a Webflow developer officially here at Edgar Allen, and I just work on client builds. Either we like our design team does the design, or they have something already on like WordPress, and we do the migration. And I'm essentially on the development team where we just build the sites in Webflow and do any custom coding where necessary. I'm not particularly, like, I wouldn't say I'm a developer, honestly, but now with ChatGPT, I kind of am. So that's been really helpful. But I've been in I studied graphic design in university, and just as I was on the tail end of that, instead of going on the more traditional visual kind of designer route, I started going to more of the development, down the development road, and just landed on just development jobs, and now this is kind of what I do. Really, not much of a plan there.
Right on. But it sounds like you were interested in graphic design from the outset, and kind of and that sort of thing.
I always kind of tell that story where I really was just because I didn't have to read much, nor I didn't have to do math. So that's why I got into the graphic design. It was like I needed something that didn't require a lot of reading, nor did it require a lot of math, and so the graphic design was the way to go. And I was lucky that I kind of decided on something that I ended up liking, or I ended up liking because I decided to do that. Whichever way it happened.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. You mentioned ChatGPT as well. Like what you can, as long as you know the terminology, like I want a function, that checks this ID and that sort of thing, you can accomplish some pretty awesome things with it.
I honestly, for me, I have like enough knowledge that I know how to ask for things. And then you can also just ask for it to explain this thing, or be like, when you have the final like function or whatever script, you can be like, hey, does this make sense? Could this be optimized? Am I doing some errors in this? And then like kind of looping through that, you end up having great stuff. And we have our tech lead here at EA, and whenever I do something cool, I'm like, send it to him, and he's like, yeah, that's what I would have done. So
nice.
It's like doing quality work if you are able to have the conversation with the chat in a successful manner, really. So for me, it has been like the last couple of months have been like life-changing on the speed in which I can do stuff. So,
amazing. Yeah, I've noticed just the quality of my code getting leveled up, because I'll do exactly what you said. Like I'll start with basic stuff, like and iterate and kind of make it more complicated as I go. And then at the end, I'll just plug everything in and say, is there a more efficient way to do this? Or is there, can we clean up this code a little bit? Or how would you, especially for TypeScript, which TypeScript is all about keeping your code organized and clean. So it helps with that. I don't know if you're exploring using that at all, but.
No, not yet. I haven't gotten into TypeScript. But what I did learn from and I think Finsweet was really key in pushing that for the Webflow sort of community, was the sort of using attributes as a way to target elements on the DOM. And I think traditionally one would use IDs for that, or classes, or just classes or IDs mostly, right? And the sort of attributes route has been, sort of something that really unblocked the way I can kind of build stuff, because you can actually just give it any name, and then you can just point at that, and
Yeah.
it's a really nice way to think about it.
Yeah, it makes sense, I think, for Webflow developers, and it just like it's such a great sort of gradual intro into code and how HTML, CSS, and JavaScript all kind of fit together.
Yeah, and we have some questions in the chat. I'll get to them as we continue to move on. So just keep dropping them there. I see them come in. Don't think that we're not looking at them, but I want to keep the conversation kind of going. And as we kind of come into, in the next couple of minutes, we'll start going through some of those questions too.
Yeah, I'm seeing them here too. I'll
Yeah.
just say what's up to Berno and just us, and I'm happy to answer the questions now if we want to do that.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So just as has two questions down here. Do you have any other creative outlets?
I find so many creative outlets with code. I would say recently I've been really into P5 and kind of doing this generative art thing and showing people how to add these kind of fancier things to your website. But other creative outlets would be cooking. I really like every couple days I'll get the urge to cook something because I think it gives me that satisfaction of using my hands to make something and
Yeah.
just something that's non-technical, no screens, nothing like that. So those are probably my creative outlets right now. I've tried to take up drawing before, but I just never I never get there. And then writing, I do enjoy writing too. So I have a
Yeah, you
blog
have
on my
the
webpage.
blog. Yeah, I was
Yeah,
gonna ask about that later.
it's
It's
nothing
super
too crazy, but sometimes when I do a video and I want to get really in depth on something, I'll make a blog post first to kind of structure my thoughts and to learn more. Like when I was talking about using P5 with TypeScript in Webflow, there's a number of topics that I have to introduce to somebody who's new to coding, um, which is like not only do I have to go a little bit beyond basic like JavaScript structure of variables and functions, but you have to get into bundling code and how code is loaded on the page and all this stuff. So I used, I just used the blog post as a way to structure my thoughts there, and it was fun to write first and then make the video.
Yeah, and for sort of that sort of video, the sort of videos that you make on your YouTube channel, there's a script is needed for that, right? There's some YouTube channels where you might not need a script, where you're like either like reacting to something or giving some like tips about your whatever, being a developer, and you might have like a general notion of what you're going to say, but you're not actually scripting that out. But when you're teaching something or when you're walking someone through something, you will have written that beforehand, right? Because so you're
No,
not.
usually no, actually. I don't script,
Okay,
yeah.
that's interesting.
Um,
Well, tell me more about that.
but I do write all the code and I always build it ahead of time. Like at I'm almost never building on the fly unless I'm building live, but even then usually I've done it before.
Yeah,
Um, but I
but
don't
you
really
don't
script.
script what you're gonna say during the video.
No, I might script the intro if I'm having trouble kind of coming up with a good hook or
Yeah,
something that catches the user's attention. But yeah, I don't write the script down. I would like to experiment with writing a script and kind of making the video a bit more stylized and animated. But right now,
yeah.
I just kind of talk through the code and yeah, go through just kind of speak out loud as to what I'm doing. It
Well,
helps a lot.
you're really good at it, because it does look like you have a plan
I mean, I
in the
screw up
videos.
all the time. If you actually watch the recording, it would be me stumbling over my words,
Yeah.
and there's definitely some editing that goes on behind the scenes. And usually I've done the whole video once, like before it's even the final product. So
Yeah.
yeah, there's just a lot of practice and rehearsing that goes into it.
Yeah, yeah, of course. Well, I to respond to Blair is just as she said, or he said, Blair. I don't know what name is that. What is that? Do you know Blair?
Oh yeah, Blair's always hit me up on Twitter asking
Okay.
me questions.
So Blair, Blair's asking like the creative outlets questions, and for me, I I also have a YouTube channel, but it's in Spanish, so most of you probably can't really, appreciate that one. But I do like tech reviews for like phones and computers and that sort of thing. on YouTube, so I'm definitely sort of a creator too on the side there.
Oh,
But
cool.
on the coding front, man, yeah, for me, like I really enjoy it, but I do it like as my job in a way, right? But then I have a hard time doing like passion projects or stuff like that. It is like related to the development work. For me, I need to like do something absolutely different, and cooking is something that I really love. Like after a long day of work, just
Yeah,
going into the kitchen for like an hour, and just thinking about what you're doing. It's sort of therapeutic,
definitely. So are you a gearhead? Do you like to do tech reviews? Yeah.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, I
What
love it.
like what's a recent piece of gear that you really like, or that you're just
Let me
enjoying? What got 10 out of 10 on the most recent review?
let me think, man. Well, I've been playing a lot with the latest Asus Zephyrus notebooks. Um, the ROG, sorry, it's like it's Asus, but it's ROG. So they've sent some of the latest gaming laptops, and been doing a lot of The Last of Us. I had never played it before the series came out,
Uh-huh.
so and I just those gaming computers are incredible. Like the screens are just awesome. The one thing I don't like is that they have those fans, man. The MacBooks don't have any fans, and they just don't make any noise. But then when you're gaming on a gaming laptop, it's just like you got that fan
Yeah.
going. Yeah.
Does it have the RGB lights too going all
Yeah,
over
the
the
RGB
place?
lights,
Yeah.
and you got all the things. And well, these are ROG headphones too, and like I got all the like they sent the whole sort of kit, the
Yeah.
gaming kit. So I've been like, it's a nice excuse for me to kind of play in game more with the YouTube channel, because we get sent a lot of stuff, and it's like, well, it's work, in a way. So I have to try this out and play for 2 hours to see the performance of this computer.
Man, that's
So
so cool. It's like just making reviews on games that's like such a cool thing to say that you can do,
yeah.
I feel like. Yeah.
Absolutely.
My brother has one of those big, a PC that he built himself, and it's got
Yeah.
the PC has lights on it, the keyboard has lights on it. It's pretty funny. I do enjoy gaming. I got my Switch. I've been playing the new
Yeah.
Zelda, so that's been fun.
Oh, I was actually gonna purchase the new Zelda, but I was like, I gotta finish the last one before I get the new one. So
Yeah, yeah.
I'm forcing myself not to buy it. So I'm playing more the Breath of the Wild to finish it, so I can buy the new one. So making progress there.
Right on.
Hey, and man, I was just continuing on the kind of thread of like your recordings that you do. I'm just curious to know, like, it feels to me that you've been in this sort of community for not a long time, right? Like I've started like reading tweets and stuff, and you started appearing on my timeline in maybe last year, or even less, maybe 6 months or so.
Mhm.
So and you're also like not a developer since like your teens. So how did you get into teaching and recording and just being a voice in the community? Or why, the question would be like, why did you get into it if you're not like this super seasoned developer? Why did you have like the confidence and to be like, hey, I'm just going to talk about this and teach as I go?
Hey, yeah, thank you very much. That's a nice compliment, and I appreciate it. I I was lurking for probably about a year. Would say I started really using Webflow about a year ago, and then what happened to me was I was able to take a coding boot camp through the VA, which was like a 3-month long program called Hack Reactor here in San Francisco, and just I was implementing copy and paste solutions from the forums on my Webflow project, um, but just not really knowing what's going on. I got my jQuery stuff confused with my JavaScript, and just like didn't know how to debug and all that. And this coding bootcamp really leveled me up. And all of a sudden, I was like learning like, oh, this is how Finsweet built this thing, or this is how this thing works under the hood or behind the scenes. So it was just this kind of really cool eye-opening experience to me. And I was like, I want to start building all these amazing things that people are building. And honestly, the reason I like doing it is it helps me level up a lot. If I have to
Yeah.
explain it to somebody else and create code that is, I feel is like production quality, that I feel confident giving to somebody and saying, use this on your project. It just like forces you to think about all the the problems that your users would run into, or all the problems that a developer using your thing might run into. Um, so as far as like coming on out of nowhere and a confidence thing, I just kind of like I think actually using Web Bae as like this name I could hide behind a little
Mm,
bit helped a lot.
yeah.
Yeah, it's a number of things. You know, I definitely lurked for a year before I was really confident to actually start saying stuff. And then I've also found just people being very receptive. Even, everything I do is not perfect, is far from perfect actually.
Yeah.
But everybody's trying to do the same thing. We're all trying to build cool stuff and get recognized for our work. And in general, the community is just very encouraging. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think
No, absolutely.
Webflow University itself was probably a huge inspiration as well. Like I just loved
Yeah.
digesting their content because it was so funny. I was like, how are people like combining humor with development content? I hadn't seen that before, so that was like very inspirational to me.
Yeah, I think the Webflow University has been like such an inspiration for us all, right? For me, it was the same thing when I was starting out with Webflow, and I started out with Webflow around 20, probably around the same time that you did, 2020, late 2019.
Hmm.
Um, Before that, I was just front end the designer developer, but like traditional way, whatever, handwriting every line of HTML. And yeah, just the university stuff was, it's like, okay, you can actually do stuff, and it's enjoyable. And I think so much of the content that exists today on YouTube from Webflow creators like yourself or Timothy Ricks or like Finsweet or just whoever else, we all just in a way emulate that style a little bit, or try to be inspired by that sort of very educational yet light and friendly and inclusive way of teaching, right? Where I think in other areas of like development, and there's so many like videos that you can check out, and it's like they just dive like straight into something, and you're like, I'm already lost, or like it's really hard to follow. Or where I think like Webflow creators are always like trying to, okay, if you just don't know anything, this is what you should do, and I think that's super inclusive to everyone that's just coming in, and it makes you want to be part of the team, in a way.
Yeah. What frustrated me about a lot of coding tutorials when I was first learning was like stuff was old versions or old,
Mm,
the development frameworks just they move lightning fast. And actually what's kind of nice about Webflow is the designer stays relatively static over time.
yeah,
They hinted at a UI update or whatever. So we'll see
yeah,
if that breaks everything coming up. But
all those videos are gonna
we
look
yeah.
old.
We are a bit blessed in that like version control is not something
Yeah,
that we have to wrestle with Webflow, and it's all like what we're implementing is HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, which is like everything always comes back to that. I'm finding. I'm
yeah,
a big fan of Syntax FM, which is Wes Boss's kind of podcast on development and stuff. And yeah, that for me is like he just always harps on JavaScript, HTML, and CSS, and that's if you're developing in
yeah.
Webflow, that's pretty much what you're working with. So
No, absolutely, man. Hey, what's that podcast? Curious to
it's called
pick it up.
Syntax FM. It's definitely more developer kind of coding focused. But yeah,
Okay.
Wes Boss is as far as like when I think of who's the JavaScript influencer, I think of Wes Boss.
Nice. And so I have a, I'm curious to understand a bit of like who you are and how you live, man. Because like, how do you do it, right? You have your website where you have like components, you have your blog, you have your YouTube videos, you have client work, you've released a course, like, and you're also fairly new to all of this. Like, I'm super aware that like every person has their path and situations, so your whatever you say is not going to be applicable to anyone directly listening. But I just like love finding those nuggets that inspire me to like do better, or something. Like, how do you do it? You do a lot of stuff.
Thank you. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of time in front of the computer. Um, Usually, my kind of mindset is to try to submit something and make it live. Like if I'm working on something, how is this something that I can make public, or how is this something that can be pushed to production. So YouTube falls really well into that, and I like that YouTube is small. Like everything is contained. I make a YouTube video and spit it out, and it's done. It's gone, and I'm on to the next thing. The biggest time management struggle for me was balancing my client work with my personal kind of projects and that sort of thing. I find it's very easy for client work to be all consuming because you want to deliver top-notch quality customer service,
Yeah.
especially as a freelancer. You're the only one, right? So it actually really helped me doing white label dev work with Finsweet because they have project managers, there. We have Webflow developers, JavaScript developers. It's easy to get help. So actually, like working with an agency has helped me kind of an agency that like respects what I want to do with my personal brand too. Yeah, that's been really helpful for me. I do still take on a lot of client work, but I'm pretty particular about what I take. It kind of sucks because I don't have. It's not easy for me to launch release a new Webflow site and say, like, look at my huge portfolio. But when I do talk to clients, now I send them my YouTube, I send them my Twitter, I send them my course, I still have portfolio projects that I can send as well. But it's been all about like learning what clients I work best with and that sort of thing. So I don't know if you got any nuggets from that, but I hope it helps. Yeah.
No, I mean, at least it's nice to hear, how you work and what you do. But for the YouTube videos and the blog is sort of tied to it, right? Do you generally get the content you try and produce for that on like from the client videos, like from the client work, or where do you get those ideas from?
A lot of time it comes from client work. Yeah, the client wants something that I've never built before, and so I have to research it and build it for the client, and then I'll adjust the designs to make it completely separate. Um, and then a lot of times it's just around the web or what's popular on Twitter. It's very ad hoc. Like something I've always been interested is creating a better content schedule. Like in Notion, there's a lot of YouTubers are like really organized with their Notion and content
Yeah.
schedule and all this. And I'm not that person. I'm just like, oh, this is cool. Let's see if I can code this, and I'll code it and be like, okay, I think I get it enough. I can make a YouTube video, and then like, okay, it's 90% there. Let's push this thing. Yeah, I'm
Okay.
an
So
I'm an 80% kind of guy for sure.
you don't take it like too seriously. If not, you wouldn't be putting out stuff out there, right?
It at the start, it's really hard to make videos. Like you've probably experienced this making YouTube stuff. It's and even on Twitter, like saying like I built this is my thing. It's really hard to say that. But you kind of get more used to it and you start building allies and that sort of thing. So yeah, it's just like repetition. It's doing reps. Yeah. How about you? How do you, so you've got YouTube, you've got your dev work,
Yeah.
you're cooking. What other hobbies do you have on the side that are preventing you or making you feel like, what's your worry? Like why do you worry?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. I just, I actually am trying to go the other way. Honestly, I'm trying to reduce the amount of things I do like extra because I want to try and be a bit more like present or enjoy the time with like friends and I don't have like a family. I don't have kids, but I have my girlfriend and I live with her and just I used to work a lot more. So honestly, I'm cutting back on a lot because I'm lucky to do enough work that I can sustain myself, and it's like I don't need a lot more than what I have. So honestly, I'm just the YouTube channel. That's the sort of side whatever thing that is fun and it doesn't make even much money really because like monetization in Argentina is just a mess due to like exchange rates with the US dollar. So I don't make a lot of money there.
Uh-huh.
And then my work at Edgar Allan, and that's like really, I try to keep it, I try to cap it at that, one full-time job and one side project, and then just try to, I look at someone like you doing like I always wanted to have like a weekly blog or something, and I'm like, man, I should do it, but I need to push myself back and be like, no, I'm okay. Like I want to also do like the other like absolutely there's nothing to gain out of this things, where you just hang out with your friends and just chill out.
Yeah, for sure.
So just
I mean,
treading that balance.
if it's any consolation, I don't think I've posted a blog post in like 2 months. So
Okay.
yeah, that's definitely the first thing that loses focus.
Yeah.
I've looked at hiring people as well to help, but it's tough, to find people who know
Yeah.
Webflow, who can write well. There's like a number of things. So yeah, and I've even tried ChatGPT to help me write, and it
Yeah.
helps a bit, but it's all work and it all takes time to create good stuff. So
No,
as
man.
as you know,
Absolutely.
and yeah, for me, what I like it, I'm pretty like committed to running right now. So that's kind of like
Mm.
if I'm not working, then I'll be running and or hanging out with my girlfriend. She has always
Yeah.
a lot of stuff going on, so it's usually pretty easy for me to be like, hey, what's she up to, and tag along and do
Yeah.
that. Um, so yeah,
Absolutely.
as far as yeah, enjoying and being present. Yeah, at the end of the day, I like to sit down and have a drink and just
Yeah.
like turn off for same as you mentioned. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. It's super important to stay, healthy, and working out is key. Like that's something I've taken up, in the last year, like a lot of exercising, and it's really helpful to kind of make the stress, like kind of leave your body through that, like
Oh
run
yeah.
or whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and you've released a course, right? The Webflow 201.
I have, yeah,
Um,
thanks. It
so
it
I
did
did want to
really,
jump into that and talk about it.
yeah, it was it's done really well. It has over 150 downloads now, which was way beyond expectations. I thought it was going to get like 5 purchases or something.
Yeah.
But and it took me 7 days to build, start to finish. So I sat down, I built it, I
Wow.
created the design in Figma in one day. I did the actual build and recording in about 2 days. Took another day to edit, and then building the backend in Webflow and making it like available for purchase and all that took another day or two. So really proud of that. But there was a lot of kind of thought as well. Like I have a number of courses swirling around in my head, and it's hard to know. It's similar to how I make a YouTube video. I have to think about it and ruminate on it for a while before I can make it a reality. Usually, once I sit down and I'm actually recording and building, it's you know the it kind of just usually it goes pretty well because I've thought about it so much.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the course, and my whole goal was like um go a little bit beyond beginner content, but not be super advanced that, or create to try and stay Webflow centric, but also show you how you can like stay Webflow centric and also sell something for money. And like when I was getting my start on Upwork, like what do you need to know to be able to be a Webflow developer who freelances kind of thing. And so that was my goal with the course, to give people kind of a practical guide of this is a website you can sell to make an income. So
Yeah. And for me, like I was checking it out, and the first thing that came to mind is, and I'm showing it now. I'm gonna add it to the stream here so people can check it out. The first thing that came to mind is, you'll probably know because of the questions I've been asking you, is how do you come up with this, right? With the like the things you will teach, right?
mm.
Um, the content piece of it. So I'm curious to know, like, was this easy to figure out? Like, what are the things you're going to talk about, or like, did you have to think a lot about it, or how did you land on those? And yeah, what was the process of
Yeah,
building
honestly,
that up?
those all came out after the build. So while I
Hmm.
was designing in Figma was probably like where I got a couple, I mood boarded a few websites. I was like, I like this, I like this. I want to do a full bleed layout. It should have some sort of slider element. Whether or not I was going to connect it to the CMS or not was a something I played around with. It should have like a little bit of JavaScript. It should have a little bit of custom CSS. Um, like a scrolling marquee. Everybody loves a scrolling marquee for some reason. That on YouTube, I have a video about that, and it's far and away like my most popular video. Client first is a marketing term, like a buzz thing that I wanted to chuck in there. Figma to Webflow, another buzzword. So yeah, over time, I guess again, these were all things that were probably ruminating in my head for about a month before I actually built anything. And then like, oh, well, there's all my very first client project on Upwork, I used CMS filter from Finsweet. So it's like, like if you're using Webflow, you have to be using Finsweet attributes right now. And that was back when it was CMS library as well, actually. So that's kind of how that all comes together. And then a couple things are like videos I've already done, like my pre-launch checklist. That's already built and everything. So all I have to do is record myself going through a checklist. That's kind of an easy win right there. But that's how that all gets built. And then but all the copy and sales copy came after I actually built the course. So I was just like,
Yeah.
well, what are some sales points here? and that's what I did. It probably the longest thing that took me was building that little stupid box with the 201 on
Yeah.
it.
I love it, man. Like you, it's amazing. Like I had all these questions, but you're just like, I did it in 6 days. Like, no fret. Like for me, I wouldn't be able to do that in 6 days. I'm amazed at your like ability to just ship fast. It's incredible. Um,
Thanks.
really amazing.
Yeah, it's fun. I like to. I'm always like to move on to the next thing. It's a blessing and a curse. Yeah.
Yeah, because like for me, I would think like, what is my background? Is it like I know you have all your setup already, so that's easy, right? In a way, but like thinking about again what you were gonna build. I know you built that like Figma file, so you designed that Figma file, and then you went ahead and built that. So I would like stay for days thinking about what's the perfect thing to build in Figma and
Mm.
that sort of thing. So it's interesting to think that. But before those like 6 days production, was there like any like what was the process when you said like, okay, I'm going to release a course? Like how did you land on that decision, and what was the
Uh,
process?
my idea was like courses will everything. I'm still pretty new, so for me, it's a lot of it is about niche authority and you know providing that kind of public facing stuff that shows like, okay, this guy knows Webflow, this guy knows JavaScript, that sort of thing. So that was kind of what gave me the idea there. And I had been bouncing ideas off of my roommate as well. And we just kind of wrote down like, I don't know, 5 course ideas. The other one that I'm playing around with in my head right now is JavaScript for the Webflow enthusiast. Like, how do you, and people have asked me for that in Twitter. And so if your customers are telling you that they want that, then you should probably build it. And yeah, so it's just like, I kind of I want to try to remember your original question, which was, um,
Like, yeah, why did you decide to build a course? But I think you answered that
yeah,
in a way. Yeah.
originally it was for niche authority, and it's I'm really interested in these ideas of how can we generate passive income and um, that sort of thing. So what's been really cool in the last year is unlocking these new revenue streams, courses, YouTube, AdSense, and what's the other one, like affiliate marketing and these sorts of things. So
Yeah.
it's yeah, the internet kind of enables us to um, generate an income in a lot of unique ways. So it's just one of those. It's my exploration and generating income via on-demand courses.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
love, and I'm happy. Like, congratulations that you sold over 100. That's like a lot, and it goes to show that there's a market out there, and that there's really like you said on the sort of passive income front. It's like there's a lot that like you can try anything, and then if it works, it's gonna work. If it doesn't, it won't. But I really like that idea of not like overthinking it, or not being like for 2 months, okay, I'm gonna release a course, and then you're working on it for 2 months, and then you release it and you have like 10 sales, and it's like, okay, but then if you do it in 6 days and you have 10 sales, okay, it failed experiment. But if it gets like over 100, then that's awesome too. So really love that point of view that you have there on just the 80%.
Hey, thank you very much. Yeah, you gotta fail hard and fail fast and fail often all the time. So um,
And
yeah,
and what are some things there on the course? Just curious to know. And if anyone has any questions, we have Shane here too. Just drop them in the chat, and we'll go through some of the ones that we didn't answer as we're kind of closing out. We have like 10 more minutes to go. Just my last question for me is, when building the course, and you built it, you released it, it went pretty well. What are some things that you think you did right, and what are things you would do different for next time?
thanks. Some things that went well. Marketing ended up going well. Like I launched a little video on Twitter. I think the sales copy on the page, I'm really proud of. I'm proud of the course too. I think it kind of shows a way of building in Webflow that a lot of people aren't showing, or they're not targeting. So something that didn't go well was my pricing. I had no idea how to price this thing. And there's Webflow courses on Udemy for $20. There's Webflow courses up to $300 and $600, and I don't quite have I think the kind of the brand awareness to be able to charge that much. So my whole idea was, let me charge this for an impulse buy. somebody, is curious on how I'm building in Webflow, they can spend $20 to see this thing. And so I initially released it for $20 with a promo code, but it's still getting purchases at $60. So pricing is something to figure out for sure. Now, I'm also not all about like charging a ton of money for this thing. I want to make it accessible, but at the same time, hopefully people realize I have to pay rent in San Francisco. So
Yeah.
yeah, so the pricing was kind of the biggest learning aspect for me. And like people on Twitter were telling me like, you should charge way more. There were some people who said, like, look, I can't afford this in my country. Do you offer
Yeah.
parity pricing, that sort of thing? So I'm pretty generous. Like if people reached out to me and asked for discounts, then I give those too. Like
Yeah.
again, like it's more about building. This course is about building niche authority for me. And yeah. And then as far as the build went, I don't know, like sometimes I get in these really productive zones where I can just sit down and crank out work. So I'm people say I have reverse ADD where like I could just like focus and I'll forget about eating. I don't know if you've like played a video game and just kind of lost all sense of time and that sort of thing. But yeah, so that's something that went well. I was able to just sit down and focus. Trying to think of other learning opportunities. Probably some missed opportunities to partner with individuals within Webflow to help me promote my course. So I did say marketing went well, but it
Yeah.
sure could have gone a lot better.
We could
I don't know. I'm just
have released this
experimenting and
earlier.
yeah, trying to. I honestly have no idea what I'm doing. So
Yeah. I love that, man.
yeah,
I love that kind of point of view, just going ahead and doing it.
yeah, just yeah, fuck around and find out.
Yeah. Shane here asks, what's the biggest lesson? But this is a big question. What is the big lesson you've learned in coding, Webflow, or agency work?
Yeah, what's up, Shane? Shane is we chat a lot on Twitter, and he's been really helpful for me with some SEO stuff. The biggest lesson, I always think like I like small packaged products. What is the finish line in agency and coding and development work? It's always like is all the resources there for this project to be done without just by me or just by our team. A lot of times I found when I was starting, my client wouldn't have all the content done, or they were waiting on assets, or they were still deciding whether they wanted to use whatever Zapier or Make. And like all those decisions have to be made. And you only learn that by doing more more work and failing at it. But for me, anytime I take on new work now, my question is, what is the finish line, and do I have everything I need to get there? So thanks, Shane. But that's my number one lesson, is being able to view the finish line.
Yeah, that's like really important. And I am personally a very process oriented person, and I think very similarly to you in a way. And you can correct me if I'm like paraphrasing you wrong, but like what I always try to think is like, do we have the things we need to do the thing we need to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
And for me, a lot of times it happens, even at Edgar Allan with client work, of course, but also with my YouTube stuff. And it's like, you want to do the thing, so you start doing it, but you don't ask yourself, are the things that I have, the things I'm going to need to reach the finish line. And sometimes it's okay to not have everything, but then that's when I get like super, and you can ask anyone at Edgar Allan, I'm like always like, let's do a checklist, right? Because it's like, if we're missing whatever the SEO descriptions for pages, if we don't have that written down somewhere, and then like what you're probably doing with your pre-launch checklist, right? That's similar likely to something that I mentioned. It's like, these things have to happen before we launch. So if we don't have them right now, that's okay, but we need to know that we're going to need them at some point. So I really appreciate that point of view, because for me, it's always about that, right? It's like, do we have what we need to make to do what we want to do,
Yeah, that's a good corollary. It is okay to not have everything.
Yeah.
But then to define your milestone, like where are we going, and what is where is our stopping point?
Yeah.
Otherwise you'll just be I don't know, sitting at Webflow, like making changes that aren't really guiding you towards a finished product. So
yeah, and sometimes asking that question is because you can get, well, you definitely not, because I now from this conversation I know you're not like an obsessive perfectionist like I am, but I can sometimes get into that thing where it's like, well, it's not there yet. We can still do this or we can still do that. So sometimes having just that notion as to like what is your like bar of like quality or like minimum bar of things that you need to have to release, and the things that you are like comfortable not having or not getting to a certain point of quality and still kind of launching.
Yeah.
So for me, it's that thing is like knowing all the things you need, but also knowing to what level you are comfortable to not have them be perfect. Because if not, you can get into those perfectionist loops where you're like, okay, if we keep this project like for 2 extra days, we can make this animation smoother. And it's like, do you need that animation to be smoother? How
Yeah.
much smoother is it smoother?
Yeah, and we're like dragging the window, like checking every pixel width, which is
Yeah,
important. Don't get me wrong. You're
yeah, yeah,
like
yeah,
be responsive, but like you're most likely your user's not going to be doing that.
yeah,
So sometimes you gotta pick your battles. Shane, I hope this answered your question.
yeah.
If that did, uh, yeah.
Heather has a nice question here for you. What are your top philosophies?
Yeah, she wants me to say "fuck around and find out" again. That's a big one. Like just failing fast. That whole idea of experimenting and seeing what sticks. What do I enjoy doing? What do people who um, follow me or people who want to engage with me? What are they doing? It's very important for me to interact with people in the community, with my customers, and figure out what is actually useful. So my
Yeah,
other philosophy, a personal one, is freedom. Like how can I build a life that allows me to be more free? And by freedom, I mean like going for a run when I want to go for a run,
yeah,
going to a conference when I go to a conference, hanging out with my
yeah,
girlfriend and going to her shows. She does comedy and this sort of thing. So, yeah, and with the Navy, like was a great career, but I did not have freedom. I was,
yeah,
I was underwater for weeks at a time, or I was, you go where you're told kind of thing. So now I'm like I'm swinging the other direction. Um,
yeah.
yeah. How about you? Do you have any major philosophies?
Well, yeah, I think they're not coming to me now, but yeah, I think just I have one that now came to mind, which I think makes sense to say is like keep moving or get out of the way. Um, so for me, it's like either like don't be in the way of people. Just do your thing, or just let people do their thing. Um, Sometimes I feel we can by by slowing, like thinking about work and that, like by not doing something or by trying to do the thing just right or trying to do the perfect thing, we delay other people, or we're not kind with their time and whatever they are doing. So for me, it's either you're doing something or just like let someone else kind of do the thing. Let them know, hey, I'm not doing this now, just it's on your plate now. And I think it's nice to just be conscious or of like other people needs to do their things too. It's really not about you. So either you're kind of moving forward, you're letting other people do their thing. Um, that's one that I love. But at the end of the day, for me, it's just being just not harming people, man. Just doing your thing without really being a pain for no one as much as possible. And you don't have to be obsessive about it, but just be good, be kind, respect, and just do your thing.
Yeah, it's inspiring. The professional network that I've made on Twitter, like there's a lot of people working really hard. And so, yeah, you got to be cognizant. Anytime I'm making a
Yeah,
video, like I imagine if you're doing review videos too, like you want to make sure that um you're respecting all that hard work that everybody's putting
yeah,
in. And yeah, so it's pretty cool actually when you step back and think about it. And yeah, just try not to here's how to make a circle move around on your screen, and hopefully nobody gets pissed off that I'm doing that.
yeah. No,
Yeah, here's
totally.
how to, here's how to draw a rectangle. Don't
It's
don't
just
do
about
that.
being cognizant that we're absolutely not the center of anyone's world.
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah.
So
Yeah, we get
um
so worried. What is that spotlight effect? We get so worried that
yeah,
everybody's watching us, but nobody cares.
nobody really is. Nobody
Yeah.
really is. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
but
something
you care, man. You brought me on your stream, so thank you. Thank you.
no, I care about you now, but not in 5 minutes when I have to do other things. No,
That's fair.
honestly, man, it's all about sharing the moment with folks whenever they can and are available, but then just letting people be who they are and who they can be with their own troubles and misfortunes, as we all have. So, yeah,
Of
that's
course.
sort of my philosophy. Great question, Heather. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Heather.
So just you can plug your shows there, Heather, if you want. We can share them. Um,
Yeah, are you coming to Webflow Conf or any occasion to be up in San
no,
Francisco?
not going to the US in any like I don't have plans. I might go to New York by the end of the year. Have a friend there living and might spend New Year's in New York, but
Cool.
it's still not defined. So if you're around, we might cross path, but you're on the other coast, so I
Yeah.
don't think that's gonna happen.
Well, I'd love to make it down to Buenos Aires. I hear you guys have pretty good barbecue down there.
We have
Yeah.
great meats, great coffee, and cheap prices.
Yeah.
So you should come before that. Well, hopefully that turns around for us. But if it turns around, it's worse for you. So come while we're still
Mm.
cheap. Uh,
Sounds good. Yeah, what was the thing? Was it a State of Flow thing that was down there in Buenos Aires? Did you go to
yeah.
that? Yeah.
Well, we organized that. We
Right. Okay.
organized that
Yeah, that was
with yeah with
that looked like a great event.
Reimer. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw Raymar down there. I was like, man, this guy just goes and travels around and yeah, visits these Webflow communities. Super cool.
So we got a stand-up show at Endgames Improv Theater in the Mission here in San Francisco. Anyone else wants to plug their work? Happy to share a plug here.
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah. So we hosted that. It was pretty awesome. A huge turnaround. Like still here it's like not big like Webflow and that sort of thing. So we got like a bunch of people coming, and Raymar is sort of a popular figure in the Webflow space. So of course having him as the like keynote speaker or whatever, draw crowds. So that was awesome to do. And yeah, but please come. Be happy to have you.
I'll be there.
Yeah, and that's about it, man. We're closing in on the hour here. We got no more questions, I think, from the chat. Well, we didn't get to one. If you have an extra minute, we can respond to Blair here.
Yeah, lightning round.
Yeah, lightning round. How do you level up consistently as a developer? Do you learn new things when you need for a client project, or do you have a list of things you want to learn consistently?
I definitely have a list of things I want to learn, but it's hard to get to them all the time. Level up consistently, just like pushing yourself to add something into your project that you may not be 100% comfortable with. And for me, I really love reverse engineering what other people have already built, because it means I don't have to do the design work. I can just focus on the technical aspect of it. So I feel like that's kind of my strategy. Is I like reverse engineering or cloning stuff that's already been made and picking it apart, and then just building it myself. So
I think a way I learn is by trying to do whatever I'm doing as best as I can. So I don't do a lot of like learning new things. Like I learn when I need it for a client project most times. But the way I try and level up is that whenever I am doing something for a client, I try to do it as best as I can and learn if I am like falling short. And that's how I sort of beef up my skills, I guess, really. Instead of
yeah,
just kind of doing it, it's like I can just do it and it's going to be okay, but I want to go the extra little mile so that I actually learn the thing. And now it's a thing that I have on my tool belt versus a thing that I just did once,
yeah, for sure. I find anytime I'm coding something, I'm probably coding it 3 times. I code it once
Yeah.
to learn how it all works. I code
Yeah.
it a second time to code it better. And like where I'm more happy with, like, okay, this can be public facing. This has reached that good enough stage.
Yeah.
And then the third time is teaching it on YouTube. So
I
every
love
time, and you're learning each time. So
And I'd love for you to respond to this one like in a minute. Berno is here from EA, and he's curious to know how do you get into JS or code in general, especially coming from a different industry? Because I know he comes from a different industry, so he probably is curious because of that.
yeah, I watched a lot of Udemy tutorials. Usually that's how it starts. I'll watch a tutorial or something inspiring, or I'll see it, and then I tend to jump in head first. And it's once I like reach a total blocker is when I'll go, like study further. But I tend to jump and build sooner rather than later. Like you really have to get your hands dirty, in my experience, or at least that's how I learn. So
Awesome. And that brings us to a close. An hour and a minute in. Man, Keegan, thanks so much for joining today, and thanks really everyone for joining us today in the chat. It's been really interesting to get to know you. It it was such a fun conversation because so many things I thought I would have gotten right about you, I did not, and I learned a lot of who you are and how you think about like work and how you build stuff. So it's been really a very eye-opening conversation, and thanks for being kind with your time and responding
yeah,
to everything.
thanks for having me, and also enjoyed learning about you. And nice to connect on the submarine front. We don't always get to
Yeah,
connect there. And yeah, just hearing about what people are working on and what their workflow is on is very inspiring to me, and excited to connect more with you.
of course, man. Well,
All right.
see
And
you
thanks
on
everybody else. Bye everybody. Shane, Berno, who else? Just us. So that is Blair. And
yeah.
yeah, we got to go run through the credits. All right, that's it. I'm done.
Thanks.